All right, a very special live edition of the wrap-up show on YouTube and on the iHeartRadio app. John Schaefer, Jim Russell hanging out for the next, I have no idea how long, as we go through a game that actually is going on right now. Jim, the Padres are playing the Braves. We feel like the game's over. I mean, the Padres have been so lifeless in game two. Nice to see them win game one, by the way. Tatis homering, the suspended game with all the oddities. They're trailing in game two. And we're just going to break down where the Padres are right now. About a week to go in the regular season. We're taking questions on YouTube. If you want to get into this chat, we'll take your questions. I think you can ask questions on Twitter too, right, Jim? We could probably take questions on 70470. Start it with XTRA as well.
Yeah, you can ask questions.
What's going on, man?
On nothing much. I can see you across the thing over there. But
I see you
yeah,
too.
I know this is our first live. So if you have a question, just comment wherever you're watching this, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and we'll answer them for you. This game is over. It's 4-0, and the Padres have zero life right now. Zero life.
It's almost like Jim. They went into this thing. They're like, listen, if we get one of these, we're good. And they almost didn't get one of them. They had the 5-4 lead that we talked about for forever. I'm looking at this box score. Atlanta ties it up in the home run. Then Tatis does what he does. And it's so funny because it was a suspended game. You look at this box score, it's like, Padres win 6-5. They're 57-42. And now they're playing game two of this, whatever it is, from suspended game to a normal game. And if they lose tonight, they go from 57-42 to 2 games over 500. And they're going to lose tonight because Max Fried has been unbelievable. Former Padre farmhand, former first rounder. Have you looked at it? Look at this box score, dude. In 8 innings,
I don't want to look at it.
He's thrown 85 pitches, and the Padres have 3 hits.
Well, the Padres are playing for nothing right now, and the Braves are playing for a division title. So it's no surprise that Max Fried is completely shoving right now. And besides Fernando Tatis Jr., like there's really nothing that you are excited about with this team at all. I can't find anything that I am watching these games for besides Tatis.
Can I give you one?
Sure.
My one thing tonight in game 2, Craig Stamon's random 6th inning. He struck out 4. I think he allowed a run.
Who cares about
first batter reached? And then he struck. It's only the 3rd time in Padres history a pitcher has struck out 4 batters in an inning. That's basically the highlight of game 2. That's how bad this has been. Not only is it that bad, remember game 1, the suspended game started late because of rain. They suspended the game in Atlanta because of rain. And then this game started late because of rain. Now, fortunately, the Padres won that game. But this game, too, is like, hey, let's get out of here. It's Friday night. We got things to do.
Yeah, let's just finish it off. And they are lucky they won that first game because that was on a track to, wow, they're just going to get walked off at home by the Braves. That was very close to a walk-off win for the Braves and Ozzie Albies. So thankfully, Fernando Tatis Jr. hit his 30th home run, but it was also 41st home run.
Yeah,
and now they're looking to get out of here because this game, it just means nothing. It's whatever.
Well, the funny thing is, we talked a little bit about this maybe yesterday. We're doing so much stuff on YouTube or on iHeart, Extra 1360. The Padres actually can play spoiler. I mean, the Phillies now, after the Padres game 1 win, the Phillies are 1 game behind Atlanta. That's it. Now, if Atlanta wins game 2, which they're about to do, they'll be a game and a half up. But you got Saturday and Sunday. Where do the Padres want to play spoiler or not? I don't know the answer to it. We talked about this as well. It's like if you play spoiler and not let the Phillies, but help the Phillies get into the postseason, there goes Tatis as MVP automatically if the Phillies are in. So maybe the losses aren't the worst thing in the world from that perspective. And then the Giants and the Dodgers series, whoever you beat more in those 2 series could be the team in the wild card game. So if you beat the Dodgers a couple of times, you could send them to a game against Adam Wainwright and the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals have a franchise record 14-game winning streak. I mean, that is unbelievable. So, I mean, the Padres can play a little bit of spoiler. I just don't know if they want to or not. I don't know what they're going to do here over this final week.
You're pitching Reese Kinnear and whoever else, like Vince Velasquez. It doesn't – there's no energy with this team. There's nothing that this team – there's no fire. There's nothing. There's nothing right now with this team. So, yeah, they could play a spoiler, and you would hope they can get up against like the Dodgers and the Giants for this last 6-game road trip, and the final 2 games at home of the year against the Braves. But I think that they are in such shock still about with what has happened with this team that the spoiler thing to them doesn't really mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. Spoiler, yeah, it's great, but we don't want to be spoiler. They're pissed off because they're not making the postseason right now.
Yeah, and they should be, by the way. I mean, they really should be. Again, if you got questions, I see that we're able to get some of them on YouTube, right? So you can get your questions in on YouTube. We can pop them up, Jim, as we get them or as we continue on. In fact, Michael Serrano, look at that. Look at you. This is awesome. This is the first time we've done this live Q&A. This is awesome. So Michael Serrano asking Craig Stammen storms into Padres lore. It's true. I mean, that's the highlight. That's where we are. From Jim, we spent months on the radio saying these final games of September are going to be so incredible. This final stretch is going to be challenging, but you might be playing for a division. You'll absolutely be playing for a wild card. And now the highlight on September 20, whatever, I don't even know the day, the 24th, 25th, is Craig Stammen's 4th strikeout inning. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten.
Highlight. It's the highlight of September so far, along with Fernando Tatis Jr.'s 41st home run. If you have a question, wherever you're at, just type it in, and we'll get to you in a second here. This from Tom. Does Kinnear have a future? No, he does not have a future with this team, Tom. I'm sorry.
No, I don't know about that. I mean, seriously, though, he's 24. You know, he was what, a 20th round pick in 2018. He's got so little time. I mean, before we quit on some of these guys, before we quit on Eric Lauer, you know, before you quit on some of these guys that you see as, oh, you know, is this really going to be part of the formula on a winning team? What happens is they move these guys and they are. I mean, Reese Kinnear in 2023 with Milwaukee is all of a sudden pitching important games in September. Or Eric Lauer, you look at what he's done here tonight. I think they need to be careful. The young arms they do have, don't just part ways right away. I mean, try to develop some of these young arms to help you down the road. They just don't have enough pitching. You know, they have nothing in their system right now. So what they do have, don't be scared to try to develop it further, right?
Yeah, and he's shown some value, but I don't think he turned like a Cal Quantrill or Eric Lauer. And yes, I was trolling tonight. I put out a bunch of stats about former pitchers, players with the Padres, and how well they're doing. But you're also right. You can't give up on guys too soon here, and then they end up going somewhere else and performing well. That's happened way too many times with the Padres. And it's kind of like enough's enough. Can we finally keep some of the guys that are coming up through the minor league system and actually, I don't know, develop them? That might be like a good thing to do.
It sounds like a really good idea.
This from All Day Ed. Yes.
Yeah, that's the story of our last two. That's the story of our last 2 months, Ed.
Yeah.
Doing the show every single night. There's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of that.
This is from Ryan. How do you guys come up with something to talk about with this team still? We got a bunch of things to talk about. Like this has now become these last 2 weeks of the season. Forget what's happened on the field. Like, forget it. It's all about 2022, what they're going to do with their manager, what they're going to do with AJ Preller, even though we both think that he's not going anywhere, and what's going to happen with this roster next year. There's a lot of questions with this Padres team right now, even though it seems like there's like nothing to talk about because they keep on losing. But I think there's a lot of things to talk about.
I mean, I could go live to talk about Craig Stammen's 4th strikeout inning. I mean, we could stay up all night to talk about that. There is a ton. You're right. AJ Preller will be back. I mean, let's be honest. AJ Preller will be back. Jace Tingler, I mean, that is the question. That starts your offseason. And then from there, you see where they go. And is it a Joe Musgrove extension or not? Can you move an Eric Hosmer or Will Myers? What changes are made internally in the front office? I don't think anyone really cares. They're not going to be sexy if it doesn't involve either a general manager or a manager. Now, can they hire a general manager because you've got AJ Preller as the president of baseball operations? We've talked about that the last few days. That's a possibility, maybe. But a lot of it has to do with the manager. A lot of it has to do with can you get some of these pieces locked up if you need to, like a Musgrove, and then can you move some of these other pieces like a Hosmer? But you're right. Despite what has happened these last 2 months, I feel like there's been more talking points these last couple of months than maybe there were in the first half of the season because, bad play, I don't know, leads you down these paths where you start talking about the future and the offseason in 2022.
This is from Blake. Do you guys think the Padres will pursue another big league catcher this offseason? They have to.
Give me Salvador Perez.
Oh yeah, so just get the best catcher in all of baseball and potentially the guy that hit the most home runs for a catcher in the history of the game.
What's he going to get paid? I mean, first of all, he is not young. He's been around forever. I think people probably could have had him, by the way, from the Royals like before 2021, and he's had this unbelievable year. I mean, obviously not going to pay. He's going to get paid a ton. He's a free agent. He's 31. He's going to get paid a ton. They're not going to land Salvador Perez, but geez, if you could have had Salvador Perez's production this year, holy crap.
Yeah, because Austin Nola and Victor Caratini combined, I believe, have 8 home runs. And Salvador Perez has
46?
46. They need to get a catcher. This has been a problem with this team for how long? The whole Austin Nola experiment,
a decade,
the whole Francisco Mejia thing. We had AJ Ellis here for a cup of coffee, and then Austin Nola can't stay healthy, and Victor Caratini is not great, and Webster Rivas, but the catching spot is it's just black. It's a black hole.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it is. It's a complete black hole. Now you have also Austin Nola on the IL. It's a complete black hole.
This is from JP. How much longer will John hold Gore hostage? Are you holding Mackenzie Gore hostage?
I don't think I am. I mean, is that supposed to say John? I mean, listen, if it was up to me right now and I looked at these how many games is it, Jim? After tonight, 8 games, 2 against the Braves, 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Giants. If it's up to me, who's starting those final 8 games? I'm shutting down Snell. I'm shutting down Darvish. I'm shutting down who else? Paddock is shut down. Musgrove could make a start or 2 for me, although he doesn't really need to. I've got no problem starting Mackenzie Gore in one of those games. What's the worst thing that happens? He doesn't pitch well?
At least give the fan base something to watch. Yes, we're all watching Fernando Tatis Jr., and if he can pull off this MVP. But other than that, what are you watching the games for? To just, torture yourself? Bring up Mackenzie Gore and start him a game. Start him Sunday. Who cares? What's the worst that could happen? You're not in a playoff race anymore. You need to see what this guy can do. Give him a start at home. Give him the last start at home. Fan base would love it. Everybody would be watching. Everyone would get excited if he goes out there and went 4 innings, gave up 1 run. Could you imagine if they brought him Mackenzie Gore for this Sunday, final home game of the season? He goes out, pitches 4 1/3, gives up 2 runs, strikes out 7, walks 2. You can't tell me the fan base would not be excited about it, because they absolutely would.
Yeah. No, they would. I mean, I think that would be a really good building block for 2022. And again, whoever he faces, it's not going to be easy. If it's Atlanta, because they're in it. If it's obviously the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium or the Giants at Oracle, it won't be easy, but whatever. I mean, have him come on in relief. He doesn't even have to start. I mean, just throw him an inning. And if he has success in that inning, throw him another inning 2 or 3 days later. So what is there to lose at this point? And at some point, by the way, he's got to pitch in the big leagues. Is this still going on, or is it gone final?
I don't know. It's an ad right now, so I don't know if it's gone final. But let's keep taking some of these questions. This is good. Ryan says, seems like Preller's inability to develop talent from the draft to the show is being highlighted as a big issue. Dodgers are way ahead. How can you disagree with that? You can't.
Well, here's the thing. I do agree with that, although some of the talent that they've drafted has developed elsewhere. That's not something good to say about the general manager either. I mean, you look at what's moved on. You tweeted about it. I mean, we could pull it up. I just think about some of these players, the Ty Francis of the world, the Luis Patinos, guys that have bright futures in the big leagues. Eric Lauer. Give me another name or two. That's just off the top of my head. I mean, there's guys that have had success since the Padres have dealt them. So I think their farm has developed actually a lot of talent. The problem is it hasn't developed talent for the Padres very often, right? Outside of the Tatises. I mean, Chris Paddock, jury's still out, obviously, right? He's been ineffective for the better part of the last 2 years.
these straight season that has ended in major disappointment for Chris Paddock. So how can you really truly rely on him? I just don't know. Oh, I got a lot of questions here. Let's see here. Back to Tom. What are the chances Preller hires another first-time manager, someone like Hensley Muelens? That's his pattern, so I wouldn't be surprised. Also, like the more things you hear, and from Dennis Lynn was on today with Darren. You listen to that interview, you start thinking more logically as time goes on here. What if Taylor's back? I don't think anybody would be shocked.
No, nobody would be shocked. Nobody would be shocked at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Tingler was back. By the way, Hensley Muelens, yeah, he'd be a first-time manager, but he's a veteran guy. He's won a ton, right? I like that name. I think, though, if you're going veteran, you're probably going with someone that's got managerial experience, if I was guessing.
Yeah, I guess. But if you're not if you're not going to hire a first time manager again, you better get this one right. And that's the whole thing here is if Preller fires his friend, the next manager that he hires, if he doesn't get that right next year, it's over. It's done. You only get so many chances here. And the more you go through the same cycles over and over again, it's just more of an indictment on you and more of a reason why, sorry, this is not going to work anymore. It's time to go.
Yeah, and by the way, he's not going to if he fires. By the way, Jim, if he fires Tingler, he's not going to hire a first-time manager, right? I mean, there's no scenario. I cannot envision that. I really cannot.
No, he can't do that. He just cannot do that. Michael Serrano, again, any parallels between this team and 97 when we missed the playoffs? I want to say no, just because 96, that was a really good season, and that was a full 162 games. Last year was a fake 60-game season that if it was 162, we might be having the same discussion last year as we are having now because they lost Clevinger, they lost Lamet right at the end of that season. And if that was full 162 games, that could have gotten really ugly very fast.
Yeah, I'm with you, by the way, because like you said, 96 was a full season, and then 98, obviously, they're in the World Series. We don't know what 2022 looks like. It is amazing, though, like 1997, and I wasn't here, but they went 76 and 86 in 1997 off what they did in 96 and then what they later did in 1998. It's again, I think it's hard to make comparisons when you go back a quarter century. I think it's even harder when you base it off what happened last year in a 60-game season. But it is interesting to note that team was 10 games under 500 and a year later in the World Series. So it's not like it's an impossibility to have a year like they're having right now and then to be a lot better next year.
All right.
What else we got?
Here. However, can only judge we still have. Yes, I understand that. But what you have isn't getting it done. It's just not getting it done. Let's see here. Dennis, see you guys next year. Oh my. Yes, unfortunately. Tom Campusano. Yes, Campusano is coming. But there are still questions I feel like with him as far as catching goes, defense. His offense, I think, can translate, but can he catch can he manage a big league game for like 120 games of the season?
Here's the good news. Even if he can't, you still want him because the DH is coming to the National League. So even if he does not develop at all as a backstop, you got to hold on to him. You got to let him play. You got to see if his bat plays at the big league level in 2022. And you got to try to sneak him in, obviously, defensively, whether it's a catch, as a catcher, as a first baseman. But if there's a DH, Luis Campusano has a lot of value potentially for you long term. Padres lost, by the way.
4-0. So what's the tragic number now?
They could be eliminated tomorrow. I don't know if the number is 1 or 2. I don't know if it's with a loss and a Cardinals win or with just one of those two things occurring. But the Padres are cooked, as we've known. I mean, mathematically
Sure.
still technically alive. How about this? I mean, Max Fried tonight, a complete game. I'm getting choked up about it. 98 pitches. He allowed just 3 hits. I mean, you can't be better than that.
Nice.
Tatis, 2 of the 3 hits, and Will Myers. That was it.
Anyway, all right. Let's go. Okay, Justin. As a Dodger fan, all I gotta say is ha ha ha. Yeah, you gotta take. You gotta take
Be
it.
careful. Yeah, but you know what? I mean, don't laugh yet, because if the Padres go to Dodger Stadium and win 1 or 2 games, and the Dodgers are in the wild card game, and the Giants aren't, it might be the Giants laughing last, or even Padres fans if the Dodgers get knocked out a week from now by the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah. This is from Ben. Finishing under 500. Yeah, it's a real possibility. And I said the only goal besides Tatis winning the MVP for like the remainder of the season, you gotta finish over 500. You can't have another 462 game season where you finish under 500. AJ Preller has had 0 of those as his tenure as general manager. Yes, last year they were above 500. That was 6 games. You need to finish above 500 in a 162 game season. You have to.
So they're 78 and 76, which means they're going to finish at 500 if they go 3-5. They'll finish above 500 by going 4-4, and they'll finish below 500 by going 2-6 or worse. So it's far from a guarantee with these teams having so much to play for. The teams you're playing, that I mean, anything better than 3-5 would be like an awesome finish against the Giants, Dodgers, and Braves, and that's what you need to do to finish over 500. So if I'm guessing right now, I mean, I think it's 500 or below. I think it's 80 wins or 81 wins.
Let's get here. This is a question. Where does Fam rank among Padre busts?
If you didn't get Cronenworth, it would be huge.
Yeah.
You
traded
got a
away.
break
Who'd you
because you got who'd they trade? Did you say?
I think
Who
it was
that?
Renfro.
Who was that?
Was it
Yeah.
the Renfro package? I think
Renfro was definitely in that deal.
And by the way, he's having a great season. He's going to have 30 home runs, maybe 100 RBIs, and an OPS around 830. Pretty good. Pretty good. So, yeah, there we go. Let's see here. Bring back Bud Black. Yeah,
Well,
he's under contract still.
You know what's interesting, though, Jim, is that Bud Black, who's got this team that's had a worse season than the Padres, he will be back, I would guess. How about Torey Lovullo getting an extension today, the manager of the Diamondbacks, getting an extension today because of the job he's done with that team? That sounds crazy a little bit, but we had this conversation on Extra 1360 on a wrap-up show a couple of months ago, and we were like ranking the managers in the NL West, and we made arguments for Bud Black and Torey Lovullo over Jace Tingler, and now that's being backed up by those organizations. I don't know what's going to happen with Bud Black, but I already know what happened with Torey Lovullo, who's a widely respected manager in the game, despite the fact that this has been an absolute disaster of a 2-year stretch for the Arizona Diamondbacks. They still have faith in him. Will the Padres still have faith in Jace Tingler, who's had a better year than the Rockies and the Diamondbacks? That remains to be seen.
Let's go here. Does Tatis still have a chance at MVP? I think we talked. Yeah, he does. I think if the Phillies make the postseason as division winners, it might be very tough for him, but he'll finish top 3, top 2 for the MVP, right?
Yeah, here's the problem. When you have a Kevin Acee on your show like we did this afternoon, and Kevin saying, hey, what Bryce Harper's doing is making me think twice, and I'm one of the 30 voters. If Kevin Acee in the market has to think twice about Bryce Harper's season, that's a problem. And it's a big problem potentially for Fernando Tatis here in the final week of the season. No question. If the Phillies make the postseason, Bryce Harper's the MVP. If they don't make the postseason and Tatis gets to 45 homers, which is still very possible, hit his 41st here tonight, maybe that'll be enough. I think it's going to be close. I think right now Harper has the slight edge, but I do think it's going to be close.
And also, he says, bring back Bruce Bochy. I mean, it's there. But again, I look at the dynamic with Preller, and I don't know if that works with Bochy. Do you see that working with Bochy? Him and Preller working together?
I think it might take a go-between potentially, Jim. And we've talked a little bit about would the Padres hire a general manager from the outside or someone that Bochy trusts? It doesn't necessarily have to be Theo Epstein, but what if you surround Bochy with someone from his circle in San Francisco, or shoot, even going back 20 years in San Diego? Because I'm with you. I think it would be unlikely. It doesn't seem like a match or pairing that makes a lot of sense potentially on either side. I think for Bochy, it's got to be perfect. And I think for Preller, for Preller, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's something he would necessarily want. I think there is a reason that his track record has been first-time managers. I don't know what the reason necessarily is. Maybe that they're controllable. It's an analytical world now in Major League Baseball, right? It's not just the Padres that have young managers. All kinds of teams have first-time managers in the big league. So I don't even know if it's something that AJ Preller would want to entertain, but I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, I think that the only way Bochy comes here is if Preller's not here, because he's looking for a situation that is almost near perfect with the front office, the ownership, and the team. Like, the team has to be good. You can't just come back and, oh, this is a rebuild situation. Like, no, that's not why Bochy would come back. He'd come back to win, and come back to San Diego. I don't know if he would like working with Tingler. And the only
Well, you're
other
saying
guy,
Preller.
or Preller, sorry. I
Yeah.
don't think he would like working with Preller. I just don't see it working at all. And maybe it might work on the field, and that's really all that matters here. But that relationship, how long would it last before it blew up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair point. I do. I mean, I think Bruce Bochy, if he comes back, the situation has to be perfect. I think on field, there's a lot to like. I think the core is there, and you could argue with the right coaching staff that this thing could click. There's people that have argued that if the Padres had the Giants coaching staff right now, they'd have a lot better year, which is
Mhm.
obviously an indictment on AJ Preller, Jay Stingler, and his coaching staff here in 2021. If that's a true statement.
Tom says, doesn't seeing Crone and Freddie play first base make you dislike Hosmer even more? It's a crowded infield, and you look and start looking at next year. What if they don't get rid of Hosmer because of that freaking stupid contract? Like, what if he is still on this team? You're going to have an infield where you have 4 positions and you have 5 players to play those 4 positions.
I mean, listen, they're gonna have to think long and hard this offseason about where they are with Eric Hosmer. There's multiple options. None of them are good. What's not good is having him come back in 2022 based on what happened at the trade deadline. What's not ideal is trading him and moving talent to trade him. Right? You're attaching prospects to move Eric Hosmer and paying money. And then the third option isn't ideal either. It's just cut bait. Are you adding by subtracting and just eating what at the time would be what 20 million is owed in 2022, and then another 44. He's owed 64 million. Is Peter Seidler going to eat $64 million to get rid of Eric Hosmer? I think that's a little far fetched. I think they'd eat a majority of it potentially, but $64 million is a lot of money for any team.
Let's see here. Bruin says, get Nick Castellanos as a fan replacement. There's only so much money this team is going to spend.
He's not a free agent. He's not a free agent, is he?
He's not. I don't know if he's a free agent or not. But it doesn't matter. Like, this team needs to spend smart money.
He can opt out. He can opt out.
Okay, well, it's fine. He's not coming here because he's going to demand a huge contract, and I don't trust AJ Preller with handing out like massive contracts to free agents anymore. I just don't. He needs to try to find like the bargain deals. You look at teams like the Giants, the Dodgers, they get bargain deals. You look at the Braves tonight. They look what they did at the trade deadline. Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler, forget who else they got, but those
Jock
are
Peterson.
like Jock Peterson. Those are under the radar deals that really no one talked about, and they have paid off in a huge way for them. Huge way. And Preller,
they lost they lost an MVP this year. I mean, Ronald Acuna, and they're still likely heading to the postseason. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they've done an incredible job to get to where they are.
Yeah. Let's go here. Phil says save some money going to Musgrove.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both we both agree that one of the first moves, if AJ Preller is still here, needs to do in the offseason
Well, who
is
cares if he's here or not? I don't care if
lock
I'm
up
the general
Musgrove.
manager. Whoever the GM is, Musgrove's under contract for one more year. He's in his prime. He's been healthy this year. He's a San Diegan. He's reliable. Why wouldn't you sign him? I mean, unless the terms are unless the two sides are so far apart that it's not realistic, why wouldn't you try to lock him up right now?
There's no reason why. There's absolutely no reason why. He's been the most durable pitcher on your team. I trust him. You're right. San Diegan through the no-hitter. He's not like an ace of a staff, but you trust him every time you put him on the mound. Every single time I have faith in Joe Musgrove. And if he goes out and gives up 5 runs, that's fine. I don't have a feeling that next time he goes out there, he's going to do the same thing, like Chris Paddock or potentially Blake Snell, or you Darvish who's up and down. Like, I trust Joe Musgrove, and that's why, they need to lock him up for multiple years. They just have to do it. Let's see here. We can't get Bochy. Who's the next best option?
I think there's a lot of good options. I really do. I think Ron Washington. I mean, you didn't go get him a couple years ago. That doesn't mean you can't go get him right now. First of all, look at what the White Sox did. I mean, they were laughed at when they hired Tony La Russa, and now they've won their division, the AL Central. I mean, there's a lot of veteran guys that might be looking for work, and maybe some of the names say, "Oh, why would you consider a Mike Scioscia? Why would you consider a Ron Washington?" There are some guys that have managed for a long time in the big leagues that are probably in their 60s, their early 70s, that may work well with a team that is trying to get into the postseason and has been around the block and seen some of the things like this Padres second half and could have lifted them before it got to this depth. That is the problem with what happened this year, and that's my knock on Tingler. When the going got tough, he never picked them up. Not that it was solely on him, but you got to think that if you had a guy that had been around the block, they would have had a little more, I don't know, oomph, fight in the second half. I think he would have had a little more credibility in that clubhouse if it was Bruce Bochy who said, "Hey, listen, this happened to me, and I'm making up the year, 1996, and we had that little rut, but we bounced out of it, and this is what we need to do." Just Jace Tingler, it's his first rodeo, and that's problematic for a team that's trying to get to World Series.
I think any other option that I could maybe see coming here, or like it's a fit, like Ron Washington is a fit. Buck Showalter, I just because he's a Manny guy,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you've brought in a couple of his former coaches in Wayne Kirby and Bobby Dickerson. So, you already have like a third of his staff assembled. You just need to bring him over. Other than that, like Mike Scioscia, is that like make anybody excited?
It's not about that though. It's about working with this team to put them on
Yeah.
a path to win, and that's why I'm with you on Buck Showalter. I think it would be a great hire. I think Ron Washington would be a brilliant hire, and I think Bruce Bochy would be a brilliant hire. Go find one of those 3 guys to manage this club in 2022, and you're better off because if you leave Tingler in his role, you could do whatever you want. You can extend him for a year, which I think would be bogus. You can leave him lame duck. I don't care if you extend him for a year. If the Padres start 2022 5-8, everyone's going to be talking about the manager's job status from the second the season starts. Why would you put your organization and your team in that spot from day one in a season where you ultimately have to win? And if you don't in 2022, there are wholesale changes, beginning with the president of baseball operations in all likelihood.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. We got a bunch of questions. Bruins says CJ Abrams being a stud next year is so important to our future. Just somebody from minor league system being a stud is important for the Padres' future. There was nobody that came up through the organization this season that helped this team in a big way. If I'm wrong, tell me, but I can't think of anybody that has come up from the minor leagues and has contributed to this team in a winning way. Not one.
What about Webby Rivas? I think they're like 10 games over 500 with him on the roster. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but yeah, CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, Ryan Weathers needs to have a bounce back season. Robert Hassel, it might be too early for him, but yeah, you need to have that organizational depth And this Padres team doesn't have it right now. They just don't. And that's a huge problem. And that's why you see AJ Preller trying to fix the farm system by rearranging people in the organization, which I don't know what that accomplishes other than you're just putting yes men in other positions that they haven't had. It's not really changing anything. It's not getting any new voices in here. It's not um, getting more ideas in here that are from outside the organization. Because the problem is you're having the same ideas over and over and over again that aren't working. But yet you hire and put guys in different positions that have been here with Preller. I just don't get that.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, this is going. But Walter lost 115 games in his final season. Did he really?
Yeah, guess what? Guess what? Joe Torre wasn't the same manager with the Atlanta Braves in 1980 than he was with the New York Yankees in 1998. I mean, a lot of it is your team. By the way, that Baltimore team I think he's talking about like the 2018 team. Machado was on it. That was like the historically worst pitching staff in the history of baseball. And by the way, the Orioles haven't gotten better. If you're an awful baseball team, a manager has no role. If you're the best team in baseball history, you could argue the manager has no role either. It's for the teams that are trying to make inroads where the manager plays a significant role, like on this 2021 Padres team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing is they have a core in place, and we've talked about this. This is not a rebuild situation for whoever comes in here. This is a locked and loaded, ready to go. Need some tweaking. Well, not tweaking. Need a lot of tweaking with a lot of different areas. And you need to get players in here that actually produce and get rid of the dead weight. But it's not. You have the core of Machado, Tatis, Cronenworth, Musgrove, Snell, Grisham. Like that's pretty good. I'll take that. Right?
They've got a core. They do, Jim. I mean, I would say that the 2015 team, like there wasn't the core. You just tried to buy it. The 2019 team that had Machado and Tatis and Paddock and had signed Hosmer, and there was a lot of excitement at that time about those players. That was still too early, right? But come 2020, might have been fool's gold because it was only 60 games and they sprinted like they did in the first 60 games this year. But there's a core now that should be winning more than they have. And I get it in the second half of the year. Has the pitching broken down? Of course it has. I mean, these final few weeks, what are we really asking of them? The problem was August when they had the games against the Marlins and the Rockies and the Diamondbacks, and they were losing and losing and losing. Like they had a chance to win this wild card a month ago, and they lost it then. And now in September, I mean, they've had injuries and what are we really asking of this team? I think they lost this thing really after the trade deadline a month ago, not necessarily yesterday.
All right, let's go to Blake here. Bochy did a nice job with the Giants, but he was a disaster with the Padres. He was not a disaster with the Padres, actually. I think he's much better now, but I do hope we go with someone else, big league managing experience. Yeah, that's what everybody wanted before Jace Tingler was hired. Nobody would have thought, or not thought, but nobody wanted Jace Tingler. There was only one guy in one organization that was willing to hire Jace Tingler. You could maybe say the Rangers, but they didn't do it. It was the Padres. That was it.
And the Rangers could have hired him. Remember, they hired Chris Woodward the year prior, right, or maybe the same year. So it came down to, I think, Woodward and arguably Tingler. I think he did interview for the job. But if Tingler didn't get the job in his own organization, to your point, I mean, he didn't get the job with the Rangers, but he got the job with the Padres. And you're right. There was only one team at that time that wanted him, and it was San Diego. That's a good point.
Let's see here. Phil, our pitching core is pretty locked next year with Clevinger coming back. Clevinger coming back off a second Tommy John. Do you really trust that with the organization's problem with dealing with injuries? I have a hard time counting on Clevinger to pitch a full season next year and be the Mike Clevinger that was traded for last year by AJ Preller. That's just me.
Yeah. It's more of a hope, right? I mean, you better hope that he helps you in 2022. I'm with you. Can you rely on him helping? It would be like relying on Nelson Lamet this year. Now, it's different because Clevinger's actually coming off the procedure and would be like 17 or 18 months removed. But it's hard to count on Lamet at this point, and it's hard to count on Clevinger. Now, he could be a huge bonus. I mean, he could be very good. There are guys their first year back that are very good, but to count on him being, a 13-game winner with a 3.3 ERA, I think that's hard to say right now.
Why has nobody talked about how bad Crone was the last 3 months? I wouldn't say bad. He just wasn't as good as he was in the first half. And again, This is another guy who is playing a full 162-game season for the first time in his career, along with Trent Grisham, along with Fernando Tatis Jr. And I think Cronenworth has had a lot of moments with this team where you can feel safe in playing him every day. Yes, he struggles, but I think that his approach at the plate is something that you're comfortable with. Like, this isn't like a situation where his approach is completely broken, like maybe a couple other guys on this team. Yeah, he just is in a cold stretch, but I trust Jake Cronenworth.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan. I think he's part of the core of this team. I think he's had big moments in the second half when very few other players have, by the way. And yeah, I mean, has it been a perfect finish? No, it hasn't. You brought up the best point. I mean, playing 162. I remember when I worked in the minor leagues, guys playing 140 for a first time. They would wear down. Playing 162 off a 60-game season and where they are right now, it's not going to bode well for all players. But as we've been saying, it's like sometimes you lose the battle, you're better off for it on the other side. And hopefully they're better off for it in 2022.
Damion Easley, who is the Padres hitting coach, is he out? I don't know. What do you think?
Isn't every Padres hitting coach out over the last? I mean, the Padres hitting coaches are always out.
Well, Damion Easley actually is the first guy, and I think like at least maybe a decade to be retained after his first season as hitting coach. So that's like an accomplishment for him. But this is for me, this is like a full clean house of the coaching staff. And it's unfortunate because I think some guys on the coaching staff are really good. Actually, who would you keep on the coaching staff?
I'm keeping I'm keeping Skip Schumacher. Absolutely. I'm keeping Bobby Dickerson 100%. I'm keeping anyone that Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. want on the coaching staff. And ultimately, if Manny Machado or Fernando Tatis Jr. let AJ Preller know that the manager needs to be changed, then the manager changes. Now, if they're on board, then maybe he gets that third year, if that's realistic or feasible for other people in the organization. But if Machado and Tatis aren't on board, he's going to go. And if Machado and or Tatis want some of these coaches back on the staff, I think a number of them actually will stay.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Like, there's a couple. I think it's more behind the scenes, like their analytic department and the approach of this team and dealing with the pitching staff. And I mean, a lot of it has to do with the players as well. They're just not performing and they have to be better. And you have guys like Eric Hosmer who come off as they're not going to change. They're just not changing. They're not changing the swing. They're not changing their approach. It's the same thing over and over again. And frankly, I think a lot of people are sick of it. They want to see guys adapt and they want to see guys evolve and they want to see guys willing to change and not being so stubborn. And I feel like there's a lot of players on this team, key players, that are kind of in that boat. Maybe not. I could be wrong, but it just feels like that because you're not getting any results. If you're getting results, then yeah, it's fine. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. But if you're not getting results, you need to change. And it doesn't feel like they're doing that.
By the way, there's so much to get to, and we're gonna have to do these again at some point. We'll do them again next week. We'll do them throughout the off season. We'll do these live chats. This is awesome. I mean, the interaction tonight was unbelievable. So we'll keep doing these over the last few days of this regular season, into the off season, into the hot stove, and we'll see if they do make the moves that people want them to make this off season or not. If you're watching this on YouTube, you got to subscribe. If you like this content, we're going to have exclusive content for you. Yeah, click down there, subscribe.
Hit the subscribe button.
If you like what you see, hit the like button as well. If you want even more and you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the iHeartRadio app. We've got the wrap-up show there, and you can subscribe to the wrap-up show there. So all kinds of way to consume this content. We hope you do that. We hope you follow us on Twitter at John Schaefer, at Jim Russell SD. We understand it was kind of like a in like a lion, out like a lamb season for the Padres, right? So much hope. I mean, there was so much hope
Yeah.
a couple of months ago, and now 8 games to go. And really, the only question is, will they finish 500 or not? And they got to go 3-5 to finish at 500, 4 wins to finish over 500. But again, thanks for the interaction. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. Jim, great job tonight. Let's do it again over the weekend or next week. All right.
All right, man.